Well, my name is Maciej Leszewski. I was born in Poland in December 5th, 1919. And as Mama told me, on our street was big fight between new Polish army and retreat German from East Front. That gunshot, machine gun, and all kinds of noises was when I was in process of birth. And after a few minutes later, I was born. Our neighbor come in and they baptized me because they thought that I wasn't going to live. Some shrapnel will kill me. And so that was quite events. Afterwards, well, war wasn't exactly over, but the Polish forces moved German back, and it was a little more quiet. I remember I started to recognize faces and voices. By about 9 to 10 months old, I started focus my eyes and familiar faces. And one was a very interesting face of a young lady who I didn't know if it was my mother or who was. And later my mother told me, when I was about 3, that was governors, because in Polish, especially young mother and some Polish family have a hire governors to help raise children. For some reason, I felt that governors was foreigner. Probably later I classified as Irish, because she sung in foreign language. Voices what there was different than Polish voices. The same when talk. Sometimes she was talking to me in language wasn't the same what my mother was talking. So for quite a few years I have the same governors, and when she went to see one sick mother in Ireland, my mother took it over, of course, and she was singing, and I was so surprised that my mother can sing. I was used to a governor singing, and I must admit that mother didn't sing as nice as governors. I think Irish singing was a little more romantic. Polish was a little more abrupt, less romantic stuff. So that is stuck in my mind. First notice that the differences between the sound, melody, and I was inquired when I was older, I could talk. I was inquired mother to tell me how the story go. And another episode was stuck in my mind very much. It changed actually my life. Was the culture celebration was a Polish tradition of family. Each family is a Polish tradition, Polish drink, Polish food, and most of the time family get together at Christmas time. And when I was probably 3.5, 4 years old, we have that celebration in the farm which my father was a partner of. And mother, of course, told me all the story because that was celebration of Christmas Eve, and our farm was about 18 miles from nearest village and church. So story go like that at evening all dining room was set from wall to wall with food, and custom in Poland is that you must have 12 different dishes on the table for Christmas. Each dish will represent a month. So it was almost calendar of dishes was on the table, and of course it was a lot of liqueur, family liqueur, and all kind of liqueurs on. So probably at around 8 o'clock or so, family start to gather together in a big table in the dining room, and my bedroom was the staircase from dining room upstairs, and my parents' bedroom was there up. So actually, our accommodation was upstairs, and entertainment, like living room, was huge living room, about 24 by 30 feet. Living room was two sets of columns in between, and they dancing and singing and singing carols, and the Christmas tree was there. So 8 o'clock, my family started to gather, and one of my cousins come. Parents took us upstairs to bedroom and say, "You kids go to sleep, and we're going to celebrate, and after around 10 o'clock at night, we're going to go with horse sled to the church." We went upstairs, and for quite a few hours we heard all this singing and noise and talking and laughing, and so we was very curious. So me and my cousin come to the beginning of stairs and look it down what's going on there, and we saw our family was enjoying dinner and drink, and around 10 o'clock everything started to be quiet. And what happened that all our neighbors come with their sled, with their horse, some sled have a hay, and some sled have a musician, and some neighbors come on horseback with torches. So all that caravan of sleds with horses have this jingle bells, so was going to the church. Now, when it was completely quiet down, me and my cousin go downstairs and look at glasses, which is such a nice colored drink, red color, green color. Oh, that looks so delicious. So we start to tasting that drink, what that drink was. Well, we taste a few times, and after we go fall to sleep because family left some alcohol in this glasses, So we was pretty well drunk, and when mother come around 3 o'clock in the morning, she spotted me laying down on the chair and snoring. She said, "You were snoring so loud that I couldn't miss you." So they have a nice fun to go to churches. Most of the road was through the forest, and the neighbors who was on horseback have torches and orchestra, 3-people orchestra. That was how you call that? I just couldn't translate to English probably. And then music, and they have a fun. As I say, Mama with the whole family come around 3 o'clock in the morning to pack me to this bedroom and bed. Another event, what it was probably in my life good to be noticed. It was our farm, as many other probably family farms, have a utility house, big house, where was a big oven made from the clay, like Indian oven, Pueblo oven. And they have all equipment for cooking, because that was the laundry room. They come and boil clothes. Previously, they didn't have a washing machine and any disinfection, so they boil clothes after washing, and they have procedures, and they have a spinning wheel, and they have all kinds of that. Winter time, when it wasn't very much to do, lady from our farm and neighbors come to this utility house and start spinning thread, wool, or linen, and was telling the story. The story was fantastic story. It was all fox tale story, but I always sneak from my bedroom to this room and lay down in a nice warm place, and I was listening to folk tales. So when Mama went to inspect if I'm still in bed and find empty bed, she know where I was. I was listening to this story. So that was my golden age of living. And next one was probably about 4 or 5 probably years old. My aunt married to some official in government, like governor or whatever. I just couldn't know that, but he had a huge home, and there were a lot of people working for him there, and aunt couldn't have a baby, so Mama tried to stimulate her sister, and quite often come with me to their house and stay for a week on 10 days. And she was hoping that was enough time rubbing on my aunt that she could have a baby. Unfortunately, it didn't work that way. But one day, the mother and my aunt decided to go to town. And the town was about 3 miles probably away from the house. So they took me for a small walk, and in that 3 miles we have hills, valleys, and forests and trees and all kinds stuff like rural area usually have. And suddenly was something on the sky, and mother noticed and I noticed immediately, and like comet coming down or asteroids coming down to the earth. And minutes later was big explosion and a lot of noise. So my aunt said, oh, I must go to my husband and tell him to call for some investigation, some army unit or to come, or what happened there. And she said, the sister to my mother said, you stay with your son and I will come back. But my mother, young girl, she was curious too, so there was a big oak tree next to our pathway. And she said to me, you sit down and don't move to any place. Sit under the oak tree, and I will go on the hill and see what is another side of hill. And that hill was probably about 600 yards from this oak tree. So she went, and when she disappeared on the hill, some gentleman was walking on the path and stopped on the tree and looked at me and he said, what are you doing here? And I said, well, I'm waiting for my mother. She tried to investigate what happened there. And she said, well, where are you going? I said, well, we're going to town. And so, oh, I'm going to the same town, so you want to come with me? And I, as ignorant guy, say, yeah, why not? So he touched my hand, and it's like almost some energy passed through my hand, and I didn't remember anything after. Till about 3 days later, they found me walking in the town because mother and aunt organized search for me. And for 2.5 days, they were searching all over where I disappeared. And they found me walking in the town 2.5 days later. So almost 3 days I was out. So mother asked me, do you remember what, how he looked? I said, I didn't remember nothing. I just completely was out of memory. However, my mother noticed that I was not the same guy what Mama left me under the oak tree. I was more calm for a young guy. I was more questioned, and question usually was not this kind of age child ask. And Mama had quite a problem to answer all that question. So she always says, something happened that your profile changed completely. So this is another episode of, in my youth, what could be added as a golden time of my life. And I was tutoring till 4th grade when they sent me to public school. And of course, was quite a bit of differences between the attention, and I didn't have too many friends because I wasn't very much interested in what 4th grader talk and think and what they're doing. But somehow I survived, and our type of education was a little different. I notice, particularly now, when I compare my education and how it was organized, it was intention of produce a product fast as you can with minimum investment, as because Poland was reborn and all educated people, Russia, Germans and Austria took it to their country, and Poland actually was left without too much brain power off. All my family, including my father, finished university in Petersburg University. So the Polish education was reborn and must produce fast. So many times students who advance faster than others was pushed a little more to produce the faster. So at 16, I joined the college, mechanical, in lumber industry. You can call that probably lumber industry, where we learn how to design paper mill, lumber mill, house building, and all that what become to be efficient in lumber building, because unfortunately wars diminish Polish forest quite a bit, and we must to build the forest and explore the forest for building purposes. So I went to this college, and as normally in every college they have that hazing, which we just taught me, my two friends. The spies, I said, that is such a silly idea to test the people, stupid testers, to belong to fraternity. So we have a professor of physics, which was quite an art engineer, and we organized ESP fraternity, where he was moderator, and we belonged and first signed quite a few people, over 30 or so. But after a few months, left over 18, it was a little too hard work, Howard. So, meantime, as in Poland, winters are very severe, and city usually close the parks and water the alley in the park, and this is frozen, and they have ice skating on the alley, and in center of Platz, where they have a shell for orchestra, was playing Saturday and Sunday, so we can dance on the ice or whatever we wanted to do, listen concert or whatever we wanted to do. So I joined the ice skating, and I was, for some reason, pretty good in ice skating, special dancing in ice. So some girls was wiggle out, but somehow I wasn't very interested in the girls, and that was my mother probably noticed that I have so many letters and so many handkerchiefs made by the girls, because for some reason in Poland, young girls usually make a needlework on the handkerchief and give to her boy as a token or as friendship or whatever it is. I couldn't understand, so I have a full suitcase of these letters, and so mother was so curious. In one time, she asked me, we have a dinner, and after dinner, she put all dishes to sink, and I was helping her wash the dishes. She asked me, if "Is something wrong with you, son?" And I said, "Oh, what do you mean what's wrong?" She said, "Well, you are 17 and you don't gravitate towards opposite sex." And I say, "Well, I didn't have any problem with the girls, except with the time. I don't have a time for the girls. And I know my friend who they have girls, they're always lacking in performance because girls take it too much time." So we was talking, and I was washing dishes, and sink was right on the big window, and from the window. But I asked myself if by any chance I ever going to be married, and if I'm going to marry, how my wife, future wife, will look in it. And this thoughts start to transparent in the glass pane. Young girl, what I never saw before, and mother ran to me, "Son, are you okay? Are you okay?" And I say, "Oh, why?" I say, "You white like sheet." And I said, "No, I'm okay, I'm okay." And mother instigate, what's going on? So I told her that I saw this young girl picture in the window pane. So she looked at the window and said, "No, I couldn't see anything." "Well, your imagination." I said, "Well, it could be imagination, but for some reason it stuck in my mind. Picture of that girl." Now I graduate to short year and start war. I graduate to short year, and it was prepared for war. It was all the time this meeting of Hitler and talking about superiority and the conquer, and Austria go first and Czechs go after, and demand from Poland to give access to Prussia, and so we all was prepared for the war. And after short year finish, in September 1939, war started. And first year of war, in September 1st, or short, I think September 3rd, my two girls, what I know from school, they was good dancer. I loved dancing. I spent a lot of time on dancing here. Was killed by a German bomb. And it was funny because I was talking to them on the corner of the street. And I say, where are you going? And I say, oh, we're going to post office to send a letter. And at that time start sirens that German aircraft coming on. So everybody ran. And these two girls run and stay in the building entry. And German dropped the bomb and killed both of them. The two girls was twins. And the city was very, very upset about that German start killing private citizenship and bombing the houses, not army barracks, not armed, but civilian, kill civilians. So I didn't expect too much from German attitude. And after this Ribbentrop-Molotov agreement, the Russian, communist Russian, sent their army by agreement with Molotov and Ribbentrop to divide Poland in. So we go to underground and try to, as much as we can, make more difficulties for these two armies. Many times we just go between moving back German army and moving forward Russian army, and we shoot in Russian, shoot in German, and withdraw. And many times incident was that Russians start shooting to German and Germans start shooting to Russians, till they find out that there are not any resistance. So, and after we make it to a resistance unit and sabotage foot trains which Russian sent to German for supporting war with France and Britain. So I was really surprised that so many nice cows and pigs and horses, and I was sending them to Germany for. And so I asked one of this Russian politruk, this political education officer, I said, don't you have a shortage food in your country? You're sending all that best thing to Germany to feed German army, which probably will clobber you after. I said, oh no, we are friends with German, no. But we wanted to support German. I said, why you wanted to support German? Because they fight French and English. And when they're going to bleed themselves out, our army go and liberate all Europe from this kind of oppression. So benefit of the fitting and build energy in German army with support. And naturally that support lasts for a few months later, 14 months later, when German attacked Russians. So it is almost similar to, like one of Americans told me that he was in the junk business of hoarding steel and iron and sell in Los Angeles. And from Los Angeles, they were sending that by ship to Japan. And he said, I was telling the guys, I say, pretty soon we're going to get back as bullets. Well, this was the same, almost same. Like Russians sent food to Germans to fight British. But 14 months later, this well-fed by Russian soldier attacked Soviet Union. When German moved from our town and Russian come and establish their occupation, I couldn't stay at home too often and too long because search for young people was always on both sides, German and Russian. So many times my home away from home was forest and farmers. So I go stay with farmers here and there. And one day I stay in one farmer and wake up about 4 o'clock in the morning, and I look at around what is the best way to get to the forest. And from his house was about half a mile to the hill, and behind the hill, about 1 mile was forest. I said, well, I probably take this route, go to this hill, and beyond the hill go to forest. So when I started walking up the hill, I didn't see anybody, and that was around 5 o'clock in the morning. So it was already bright. And then on top of the hill, I met a gypsy girl. She was probably 17, and that surprised me no end, because gypsy are quite popular in Poland, tell the fortune. And they usually come mother and daughter. So mother or party was teaching trick of daughter how to tell the fortune. But here was a lone girl, about 17, and we meet right on top of the hill. And she, as usual, asked me to tell me fortune. And I say, well, I don't believe in fortune, a special war. I say, what fortune you can tell me? And she insists and walk after me, and she said, no, I must tell you fortune. So I say, well, probably I'm going to lose her if I say I don't have any money. So I did. I say, yeah, I couldn't pay you for telling me fortune. And she say, what shocked me no end, I will take it that half a zloty what you have in left pocket. And indeed, I have a half a zloty in left pocket. And that really shocked me, and I say, okay, I give you that half a zloty and tell me what you think. So she was telling me all about my past. And in the future, he said, you're going to survive the war. You're going to marry a girl across the pond, big, big pond. And you're going to have art prizes in May, beginning of May, in land beyond the pond, big pond. I told her, I said, lady, you're crazy. I don't know minutes from minutes if I'm going to be alive. You tell me that here we almost start the war, and you tell me that I'm going to survive. Well, after all that stuff, she say, good luck, and walk back. And I was so curious that a few minutes after she left me, I go to the top of the hill and I looking where she went. And I couldn't find any place here, like disappear in thin air. Like here she was telling me fortune. A few minutes later, he disappeared in thin air. Earth under the feet, getting hot and hotter, especially that few of my friends joined Russian communist police, and was telling all the time story, and the Russian secret police start to arrest Poles and all family at night and midnight, usually raid, midnight raid we call that. Go give family 15 or 20 minutes to pack belongings and go to the train and the Siberia. So I say, well, it's a time that I start thinking about evacuate myself from Poland. I wanted to join French army, what was still fighting there, and probably go to England, because I know that in England was forming Polish army. In many nights and days of my analytical process, how to get there, favorite was go to the west. Was shortest way, it was a few hundred miles probably, but it was occupied by Germans, and they have a lot and good trained secret police. A lot of people who try go to the west, they was caught and sent to concentration camp. Now, that's not what I feel I would do it. I felt that probably it is longer, more secure. I will go through the Russia and go to China, and probably Chiang Kai-shek, and probably from the China I can go to England. So that decision was I took it in, and I start on my way. So that was very, very hard decision for my mother and for myself. But I don't want it to be rotten in the concentration camp, German concentration camp, or to be eliminated in Russia by Soviet secret police. That was closer and closer to our work in it, so it was a time to leave. I was quite a religious person. I was not extreme religious, but I was believer, strong believer. I was Catholic, attended church, Catholic church, almost every Sunday. We belonged to the Catholic organization, which of course Russian destroyed completely. And but I just thought it would be probably better if I go to church and make it my peace with the Maker and share my idea of going to China and get his blessing. And at that time I just felt that it would be better if I learn some language, Russian, fluently Russian language, and learn more or less about the different region which I will walk through and travel through, or whatever it is, their culture, their habits, probably even learn some few words here and there. It could be probably helpful. So I went to Russian Dziesięcioletka, that is 10 years school, to learn the Russian language. And I learned pretty well, so I have a pretty good in command Russian, Polish, and a few words of other region which I am going to travel through. And I decide now will be time, so I took it 5 rosary with me. And priest, of course, gave me a lot of pamphlets to carry. But when I came home, I said, no, son, you better don't do that, because if Russians find that, sure, you're not going to get alive from it. So I put this rosary in my jacket, so under put in the insulation of my jacket that won't be detectable very much, and leave this other brochure and pamphlet with Mommy, and with the Barbara, which was, I was working with her as unit, and my friends, we went to the cross where Tsar army previously in 1814, I think, hung Polish resurrector there. They start to fight for independence, and they caught them and they hung them. So Poland put nice grave and dedication and cross there. So Barbara showed me some small sack, and we went there making some prayer, and I took it, the sack of Polish soil with me on the road, and I carry all the time. And Mother told me too that, well, if you wanted to pray, son, you better write it in form of the letter. Because if you're going to pray on printing, from printing, or from book, they're going to suspicion that you are Christian, and they're going to prosecute you. So I wrote my prayer and piece of paper, just like letter, and I was carrying with me all the time. And every time when I have a chance and feel really depressed, I read my prayer. And with that prayer, I almost felt that a little angel is sitting on my left shoulder. So many times when I have a big problem, I ask, I say, what am I going to do now? And here's this little angel on left shoulder say, hey, do this, and other thing. And most of this was success. Almost I don't remember anything, but I didn't do it as my little angel tell me to do. I was always successful. When I left Poland with my 5 rosary sewn in my jacket in secret compartments, and I carry, of course, a jacket every place where I went. And my trip to China was quite hard and eventful. Most of my trip, what I was planning, it was playing the hobo, like in West, people on the train hopping to pass hundreds of miles of traveling, and actually you can say their home is the railway car. I was trying to do almost the same. However, in pre-war condition, I mean pre-war condition between German and Soviet Union, was very difficult because train was pretty well guarded in. Many times I saw what I call kapwa, I think in English will be observe a tower above the railway car, and for numbers of months I was observing that many of them are empty. So I was registered to my mind that any time I'm going to travel by the train, if I couldn't go to railway car because it was locked, I can jump to Kapwa and sit in Kapwa in. So during the war between Soviet and Germany, this was quite released, and people was interrogated like more or less freelancer traveling, because many Russian was emigrate or transplant to Asiatic Russia, and they didn't have a time to have any documents, so it was much easier to travel, especially that Sikorsky and Stalin agreement, all Polish displaced people to Siberia supposed to be moved to South Asiatic Russia for organization of Polish army. So many times I attach myself to this group for traveling, and one time traveling from Chelyabinsk to Tashkent, I was attached myself to one of this group, and I noticed in one compartment, because Soviet provide for this group train, actually passenger compartments like Pullman, where you have a communication easy off, and even heat was provided for it. So we was more or less treated like human again. In walking to this compartment, I saw older lady and two young girls was constantly crying. So I was quite interested, what is the problem? And I said, well, probably something happened, that's what they cry. So I say, well, I wait for next day and see what happened next day, and came next day and I see the same thing. They sit in one corner and they cry all the time. So finally I asked them why they cry. And the young lady, well, about 16, she say, oh, we are crying because our father and our brother was taken by Russian to labor camp, and we don't know anything where they are,
are they still alive or what happened to them? So I felt very sorry for them, and I say, well, not too much I can help you with it, but I reached to my jacket and I picked it up from secret compartments, one of rosary, and I say, well, if you would like to pray on this rosary, could happen miracles. Well, they thanked me for rosary, and next few days I noticed that there was praying on the rosary, less crying and more praying. We arrived to Iris station where was a lot of train stopping on sideways to give room for army train, which was from Vladivostok to Western Front transport. And we stayed there for about 1.5 days in that station to let numbers of trains to pass by. And I took an advantage to go to another places and finally, if by any chance some other Polish people are going in our direction. And after survey that, I came back to our train, and I stood at the doorway of the Pullman, outside doorway, and 2 hours later our train started moving slowly, and I saw some young fellows running and trying to jump on our train. So I opened the door and extend my hand to grab his head and pull him out to the train. And I was successful then. So we closed the door, and I asked him what he was doing while he's jumping, if he's hobo or what. And he told me that he's searching for his mother and 2 sisters. And that hit me immediately. I say, oh, you are looking for a mother and sister. So I took them to this lady with rosary, and she was still praying, and reunion was fantastic. That was son who gave all information where they was taking up to Lake Baikal, where they was building autodrome, as they call it in Russia. And I think this was really rosary miracle, because who will know that in big territory of Russia, these people can connect together in the train in Iris station. And it was cold, Siberia, that was cold like Dickens. And on the station we stopped because it was passing army train. So both trains had stopped on the station, and I just look at it, that Russian soldier, and they have a nice equipment to protect them from heat. So I say, how about if I steal some blanket? So I try to steal some blanket, and I get the blanket, and soldiers stop me and try to shoot me, but some Russian soldier said, no, come, I'm going to keep eye on him. So she took me to the train, and she
see that I'm hungry and I'm miserable, so she gave me bread, and she take the blanket and she run. This guard is on the other side of the train. I say, thank you, Angel, and I run. So I have the blanket. Slowly I was here and there, keeping up a supply that I can survive my journey. And I almost come 70 miles to Tashkent, 70 miles from the China border. And I heard on the radio, Moscow radio, because Germany was attacking Moscow and Stalingrad, that General Sikorsky from England make an agreement with Stalin that any Poles who was evacuated from Poland, could be free to go to Polish army. And I said, now I don't need to go to China. I will help to organize Polish army in. So I get contacts in Tashkent. That is in Uzbekistan. And they was sending me to collective farm and all other places to find where some Poles are, and anybody who wants to join Polish army. So I traveled as far as the Osh. That was probably about, I don't know, 200 miles or more from Tashkent. And I have 12 people, and 2 of them was Jewish boys. And they wanted to join Polish army, and I say, really, you want to join? Yeah. So I gathered 10, and I get tickets from Osh to Tashkent for 12 people. So we arrived in Tashkent with 12 people. I say, don't run away any far. But in Osh, these 2 Jewish boys come with big sack on their back. And I look at them and I say, now what do you have there? Do you have a clothing? He said, 2 big bags. I said, no, we have a machorka tobacco. I said, what tobacco? I said, oh yes, tobacco, because in Osh we can buy 50 kopeek for a glass of tobacco, and in Tashkent we sell for 5 rubles the glass off. So we arrived to Tashkent with this tobacco, these 2 guys, and we come to the unit where the Polish outpost, it was closed, and say, we must come to next day. So I said, well, we must spend night here, and where it's best to spend night, like in Russian park. There are a lot of benches, and you sleep on the bench and sleep in the park. So next morning we get up. I see 10 people, 10 boys on it, 6 volunteers. I say, where's the other 2? We don't know where's the other 2, they disappear. So around 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, we went, and I said, oh, I better go and see a railway station in Tashkent. If there are by any chance they're waiting there for it. And I go on the steps because railway was a little high and was series of steps, and I see, here there are two volunteers laughing and talking, and I say, hey, aren't you going to come and you're supposed to join army? He said, not anymore. I said, what happened? I said, oh, we have a few thousand rubles now, so we don't need to join the army. So they never joined the army. Not the army what I was, they probably was forced to join after we left. But the army what was formed was Anders' army, which was a difference when after second Polish army was formed on Russian soil with people who didn't want to go to Polish army or didn't want to go to Russian army because they say they are Poles. So there was forced to go to Polish army in Russia, and they was fighting here. Biggest fight usually that Polish unit gets. So anyhow, with the 10 people went to the Guzar. That is a small village in Turkestan, where this was part of all volunteers formed the units, and the units will be sent wherever Stalin wants, that the units will be sent fight with Russian. And Anderson somehow persuades Stalin otherwise, that first, well, skeleton couldn't fight, and most of the people what I come as volunteers was looks like skeletons, because they didn't have a good food, forced labor, and 16, 18 hours labor, no enough rest. So you couldn't fight with kind of people, so we must to get good rest and some arms to train with it. So somehow Stalin agreed on it. And he gave us wooden rifles because he didn't trust us. So we exercise our army exercises with wooden rifles. Russian police or communist police didn't like me to penetrate collective farms because they need free labor, and any volunteer, Polish volunteer, to go to Polish army cut the labor, so they tried to catch me and probably send me to jail, or probably even shoot me. So I was on this list of people who was not very pleasant. But somehow, with the edge on my shoulder, I was able to many times fool the Soviet secret police. And when we went to Guzar, we didn't have any houses, nothing. It was just issue one blanket, and that was it. So you put blanket around you and you just lay down any place where you could find the place. And many times I slept in cave on the river, close to the river, because it was fresh water. It wasn't fresh water, it was murky and red, full of clay and probably even gold. I don't know. Probably it was gold there too. And wasn't any hygiene whatsoever. And thousands of people was coming out without any services. So typhoid fever developed. And they required hospital, what there wasn't any. So Russian give school, evacuate school, and turn the school for hospital. And what was in that hospital was floor, concrete floor, and they issue another blanket. So you put one blanket on the concrete floor, and second blanket you cover yourself. And I contract typhoid fever. And they took me to Banya, what it was necessary. Banya was, well, washing facility. It was actually steam. And you go to steam it up yourself. And after rinse it up, all sweat when you get in with cold water. And they shave your head completely out and send you to that school, what's supposed to be hospital. Now, when they sent me to this preliminary investigation, one nurse ran to me and he say, Rene, my son. And I look at her, and she was aiming me, and I say, I'm not Rene. I say, you are my son, you. And she was telling me that her son tried to go to France. He was fluent in German. I speak a little German, but not fluently. And she didn't hear from him. But I was a picture of him. So she almost adopted me as her son. So I was put to the classroom, but was 38 people laying down on the floor. And I was put next to a fireplace because there wasn't any heat. In school, they burned the fireplace. But when they turned the hospital, it wasn't any room to start the fire or to even have wood for fire. That room wasn't at all heated. So in that hospital I stay for quite a few days, and a lot of people die. And one night, I want to go to bathroom facility. What bathroom facility was, close the door was bucket. Would you go and sit down on the bucket if you can? And that was bathroom facilities. And I was trying to go to this bucket, and halfway I collapsed. And so it happened that my mother, adopted mother, was on the duty at that time. And so that she saw me, that I'm losing life, she started yelling for the doctor. And I start feeling like my heart slowly start beating slower and slower and slower. And finally stop. And I was transferred to beautiful orchard. I saw a lot of flowers, a lot of blooming tree, and birds were singing, and I was so happy walking in that orchards. But meantime, doctor responds on her, nurse yelling, and he ran with big needle. And somehow I saw these needles. But before he make an injection, he was checking me, and he grabbed my pulse, and I saw his head. He said, "He's dead." It's nothing. The nurse say, she told me after, he said, "He couldn't be dead." She grabbed hypodermic needles and shot me in the cheek, back, you know. And at that time when she emptied hypodermic needle, I came back to life. And I lost all this beautiful garden and beautiful orchard and flowers, and think of, I miss them so much. And they put me on this, my place where I lay down. And about 10 days later, I didn't remember who I was. I didn't remember anything. My adopted mother was teaching me how to walk, how to speak, how to write. She was really taking care of me very, very good. And she was telling me story because I asked her if they, by any chance, transfer me to another hospital. And she said, they don't have any other hospital. Closer hospital was Tashkent, what was about 1.5 days by train. And she said, why? Because I saw, and I was walking in orchards. And she, they don't have any orchard in Guzar. There's not any orchards. No, you must die. You must do me after death's experience. But I couldn't stand deal with your death, so I shoot the vaccination, what I don't know what it was, what brought me back to life. And I felt a sharp jab in my cheek here. And I was pretty mad that that sharp jab take me away from these orchards. It was so peaceful, so nice, so sunny, so beautiful. Well, first, after about 3 weeks there, and I learned spelling my name, and I recognized my name. My friend came and he said, well, first, to Pahlavi evacuation, our soldier to Pahlavi, Iran, will be in 2 days. My friend wants me to go with him. And they say, impossible, he couldn't walk. And my friend said, oh, we're going to smuggle him out. And I said, no, he couldn't. So he went first. I recuperate. And after about 3 weeks in the so-called hospital, they tell us they're going to send us to a resort area to get a little better food And so we was all excited. Hey, we're going to a resort. And we was just thinking that probably some rich Tsar Russian farm was taking and turned to resort. So we was all excited about it. So they loaded us on the trucks and horse buggy. And we was going and going 2-3 hours. And the resort was chicken farm in the desert, which they make a big hole about 12 feet by about 8 feet and put a roof over with the straw and put roosters, benches for chicken to roost on it. And they say, you must to clean it up, chicken dough, and we're going to bring you straw, and you must make it bed on these benches. And that's what you're going to be your resort. Well, this is another many disappointment. But you must do what you must do in order to survive. So we did. But next day, we say, well, what are we going to do now for food? No chicken and nothing to eat. So survival instinct and teaching of a lot of Asiatic people tell me go to desert and hunt for turtle eggs, digging out turtle eggs. So we take 3 or 4 guys and hunt for eggs, and we discover a few eggs. And we discover a few turtles, but how are you going to kill the turtles? He just put himself out in this shell, hard shell. So we took it like prime people. Says, monkey, take 2 stones and put turtle on 1 stone and take another stone and hit a few times, hard shell of stone, and finally hard shell of stone, give it up, and you take it apart and you take a meat of turtle and cook for the soup, turtle soup. Well, when they give us, one thing, when they give us salt for it. And we make a scrambled eggs, turtle eggs, as dessert. So that we survived for 10 days, I think. After 10 days, they took us, and a Russian lady doctor, because Stalingrad is almost ready to fall. They was planning to put, and at that time, Desert Fox, General Rommel, was in North Africa chasing towards Ural Mountain. So Stalin decided that he probably will send another unit. I was in 2nd Corps with General Anders to protect from German invasion to Caucasian mountains, because Stalingrad was very hard to take it. So they felt if Rommel go to south end and flag Stalingrad would fall. So Stalin says to that Russian doctor lady, oh, look at you, yeah, good, go. You will be transported to regular army. So they transport us and give us wooden guns, because I don't know if they didn't have guns or they didn't trust us, that we exercise with the guns, wooden guns, with not any ammunition, nothing, just only. And after about 3 months of exercise, they transported us to Krasnovodsk. That was the Caucasian lake, and it was border between Iran and Russia. They loaded us on tankers, oil tankers, and other tankers was 3 level. There wasn't any. It was a front deck, and it was level where they put no facilities. This thing was terrible. But it was only about 10 hours trip from Krasnovodsk to Pahlavi. Pahlavi was in Iran. And they have this bridge, 3 boats come to the tankers, and on that bridge, or catwalk, or whatever you want to call that, was full of Russian secret police, and they have a bunch of photographs. And anybody who has passed through, they look at photographs, they stop you, they look for series of photographs. Everyone have probably 12 photographs or so. So you have about 6 posts where you stop. And I whispered to my angel on the shoulder, I say, do something about it, because they probably have my photographs there. And I passed to that 6th checkpoint. And when I step on the tanker, I say, oh, halfway. I'm still on the Russian tanker, but I am already past all this checkpoint. So for 10 hours, they put first 100 people or so on the deck. 10 minutes, these 100 people go down to shirt deck down below, and from shirt deck come on the deck and get fresh air. And after 10 minutes, they go and replace second deck, and second deck go. So we go this for fresh air. Quite a few people pass away, you know. So finally, at evening, early evening, we arrived to Pahlavi, and Pahlavi looked so nice. It was nothing but the desert sun. And a lot of people with boots, with a lot of boots all around Caspian Sea, the place, Pahlavi. Merchants selling eggs, selling souvenirs, selling everything. And I have electrical, I say, oh my gosh, that is, look at chocolate, or many chocolates all around. But they forbid to, because we were so starving that our stomach could be deadly sick if you eat too much. And a lot of people die from overeating. And somehow I smuggled dozens of eggs to my tent. One was put on the sand, beach sand, and was with barbed wire. That was like prisoners in the, concentration camp. But they say, oh, there will be a few days till all transport will be unloaded. And after You go, say, you see there is that second camp, and you see this pile of uniforms. I say, you're going to go to the baths. And baths was chemical baths. And you're going to the shower, everything was in tent. You go to the shower, you drop all this old uniform, and lifter, the cab lift your uniform and throws on the pile there to burn out. And you go to this chemical bath, and you are sprayed with some Milky Way, some chemical, and you go to the steam and go to another tent where there was shower to wash all that milky stuff, and you get new uniform, and you go to another camp, and you're not allowed to go back to it. But meantime, I say, that's next, I'm not going to take it to shower, so that's next. I pay for it, I must eat them, and I make a scrambled eggs for that's next. And eggs and sugar in Russia was commonly and here commercial almost. So I eat a dozen scrambled eggs, and that cured me from eating eggs anymore in my life. I wasn't deadly sick, but I developed allergy to the eggs. I just don't care what. Before, I love eggs. Scrambled eggs, sun-up eggs, any eggs is fine. But after that dozen eggs, and so after I went to this process of getting to another camp, and they have a lot of supply too. And you can go to buy things, but you have a patrol on gate when you come back, and they check what you have with you. So they don't allow one chocolate on you. If you have 3 or 4 chocolate, they confiscate it. It's only one chocolate allowed. You know, so we learned very slow for about 3 weeks. We learned how to adjust the food, and we have a regular army food coming in 3 times a day, but very little. There wasn't enough to get our hunger. So every day they increase a little slowly. And finally, after 3 days, they put us on the scale, and they put people who gained weight, okay, on one side, and people who couldn't gain the weight on the other side, and they go back to this camp for more food and longer. And we went to another camp where there was a bunch of trucks. And trucks wasn't army trucks, but trucks was Iranian trucks, was big trucks for cattle trucks to transport cattle. And they pack us like sardines to these trucks. And we went to the mountain passes. Boy, the truck, sometimes 3 or 4 times, back up because he couldn't make a curve. Road was so curvy, and we lost about 3 or 4 trucks full of people dropped to 3,000 feet down. So we arrived to the first outpost of Kanekin. It was a desert, everything in desert too. get the tent, drag the tent to the desert, put the tent in, and they issue us a regular army with ammunition. And patrolling our camp. And that's what started my Polish army. Because we, from Kharkiv, we were sent through Iran to Iraq, to Egypt, to Palestine, to form a second line of defense under Alexandria. Because Roman forces was chasing an army. And Churchill changed quite often command on an army in Egypt. They didn't do a right job. So I came to the point to Egypt when Montgomery was put in the charge of an army. And somehow I like Banti when he came to our unit. And he was dressed like a normal British soldier, not any medal, nothing, just a regular soldier. There's only here that he was general. And he was talking to us just like soldier to soldier, you know. And I say, well, that's it's funny. So we formed the second line in between Cairo and Alexandria. And at that time, it was big. Who is better, Desert Fox, what was Rommel nickname, or Monte, which was fight Desert Fox. And Monte came to some brilliant idea and built cardboard or plywood tanks, shell tanks, and put that shell tank on the regular tanks, drive to the desert, drop the shell tanks, and leave the truck coming in, but wiping up the truck coming out. So almost when German aircraft come, he saw the camouflage cardboard or plywood tags and truck in it, but he didn't see any coming out. So they concentrate their army to fight these wooden trucks, tanks. And meantime, Monte go on the Mediterranean side, what was weaker because Panzer Division was sent to fight this wooden truck army. And he shellac, and that's what he met with American GIs. So he was from East, Montgomery from East, and American were from the West. And I was in camp of Gaza Strip. We was released as soon as we chased out Rommel. Rommel wasn't there, Rommel was already in Germany, but he's Rommel appointed some general. He wasn't a very good general either. now. And American correspondents come to us and ask many of, including myself, what name and where I'm from and what I wanted to be. And I say, well, I wanted to be shipbuilder, but I say in Poland we don't have too big facilities and don't have almost to window to ocean or Baltic Sea is a small lake almost. And I remember he said, hey, you wanna, I put your name to newspaper because after war, probably some American will sponsor you to come to America to build ship. We like people who wanted to build ship. We have a lot of facility and not enough people to build the ships. So I said, fine, put my, and he interviewed some other people. And an hour later, I saw him running back to our camp. And he said, I've heard you guys wanted to write to American girls. And I said, well, you have my name and address. Army mailbox, you know, that was our address. And that was it. We was trained. We went to Syria. We was training to have a bridge exercises. We was training for descent to Italy. And we was camping near Ismail. We was building bridges on Lake Ismail, or Canal Ismail, pontoon bridges and land bridges. I was in engineering special assignment group. From my engineering background, they almost forced me, especially that my background was okay, but I couldn't pass in special assignment parachute drop. I always miss balls eyes for 20, 30 yards. So I wasn't assigned to paratroop special assignment group. I was assigned to land special assignment group, which usually go behind the enemy line, blow out the bridge and come back to unit or any other stuff what needed to be done. They recognized mining field, this mine, and so I was assigned to this kind of group. And come time when everybody was called to Port Said in Egypt to load it, ship to descent to Italy. And we have about 24 of ship. Because the army was about over 100,000 people. It was quite a few ship. And each ship have 3 balloons. Prevention from Stuka diving on the ship. So that balloon was probably 100 feet high or more, 200 feet high, was different heights that he couldn't scoop. And we lost 2 of them, so my ship have only 1 balloon. And that was British ship. So I asked this British guy, he said, how long will it take you? And he said, oh, I don't know. All depends, because we are not going, direct trip is a day and a half.
But during the war, it would take a week, 10 days, because they're zigzagging. So from Port Said we go to Crete, but island Crete. But we didn't land in Crete, we stay. And probably was searching for German submarine in Crete. So we was from Crete probably about 2 miles from the Crete in the Mediterranean. And after they find out that it's okay, so we start to zigzagging. And I was in short level of, they have a hammock. There wasn't having in bed hammocks, because that was again transport of cows and livestock and everything. There wasn't passenger ships. I wasn't so lucky to get passenger ship. Some others get passenger ship. And every time a tank of Messerschmitt or Stuka, everybody must run down to their hammocks. A tank of submarine, everybody must run up on the deck. And oh boy, every time we got about 12 or 24 times, or Air Force, and submarine sank our one ship and damaged another one. So I remember our ship went to pick up survivor from sunken ship. And so we 11 days. We have 11 days, and we landed up in Taranto. That was this Italian fleet was there, and we did go to Taranto dock, but we stay about 4 miles from. And we get amphibians and disloaded to amphibia. And I remember this partially wooden, partially rope ladder. And when the ship was rolling up and down, that ladder go out of the ship and back to the ship and up. And you finally 2-3 steps down, you jump to the stuff. And I remember jumping, and 2 guys after me jump, and it was siren. And everybody, 3 Messerschmitt coming in. Everybody stop unloading, and our amphibia go, and bunch of amphibia, was about 2 or 3 dozen of amphibia. And it was running, you know. And this Messerschmitt, 3 of them, they start shooting us in the water. And probably about 40 minutes, Polish Air Force was Spitfire, 4 of them coming in. And boy, those 3 Messerschmitt just run like scared cat. They didn't want to fight at all. They just ran to Foggy because there was standing Foggy. And so we landed. I remember my amphibia came not to the dock, but to sidewalk. Was have steps to the dock. It was probably about 8 feet up, like wave walls from stones. It was staircase. It was up to the walk and traffic and cars, and we walked there. And I learned a little Italian, As much as I ask you, I say, well, where is the dock? Toronto dock, and Italian ships. And the Italian guy pointed up, he said, there, right there. So I walked there, and a bunch of warship and ship was there. And I said, why they didn't go? I said, because British sank battleship in the passageway that they couldn't pass through all the ship, all that fleet. The South Fleet of next fleet was in Ancona. It was caught in, so all fleet was sitting there, and the battleship was sunk in this gateway to get out from stuff. So we go to, and it was pouring rain after the cloud came, and was, oh my gosh, rain was pouring. Oh, we go to forest. We just didn't want to mix with this people because they will shot people and us. So we march like wet duck to forest. And I remember everything. Water was running in the forest. It was so wet. So I was cutting the branches and picking the branches and making probably about 6 inches bed from branches and put our dog, what we call dog tent, one. Soldier have his own tent to put in and sleeping bag. So I put that sleeping bag on the branches, and water was pouring this time, but I heard the water under the branches was going out, but I was reasonably okay. So next morning I heard some kid shepherd singing, beautiful singing. I get up and I say, hey, well, I'm still in the water, what's going on? And I saw that young, probably 12 years old Italian guy singing, beautiful singing. So a lot of guys sitting on the front of the tent and was listening to him singing. So this afternoon, we say, well, we're going to go and attack Foggia in the airport, German airport. And I think they contact American Air Force, 5th Army Air Force, I think, 5th one, and British, and bomb hell from Foggia, from airport. And we attack on the land, Foggia. So most of Messerschmitt and Stuka was destroyed by bomb. Few of them we destroyed with the arm. With Monte Cassino, with Loreto. And one night in all my driving during the war, I have a Jeep and motorcycle, and I always select motorcycle. And one day in Loreto, we were sent to repair roads with German blow up. And it was good about 11 o'clock at night. It was dark, wasn't any moon shining. So I was lit on motorcycle without the light, of course. But what happened that exhaust was giving the light, and there a German Messerschmitt followed the light of my motorcycle exhaust and it started shooting. And I saw these phosphoric bullets coming all around me. I stopped motorcycle and checking my body if by any chance one of these bullets hit me, but I couldn't detect any blood, nothing. And pretty soon I saw Polish artillery, anti-aircraft artillery, start shooting an exhaust of his plane. And they hit him. And pretty soon I saw plane burning, come down, and his jump out, and his parachute was burning too. So this was another effect on my angel on my shoulder, who always I asked, do something about it. And he always did. So this is another episode what it happened under the Loreto. And after we moved to Ancona, and furthermore, my friend and my boss go to reconnaissance and was captured by German. And that was in northern Italy. And was called to build the bridge because German blow the road on the mountain in radius what wasn't enough room to build Bailey Bridge. And casualty from war front was coming in, but they couldn't go to hospital because wasn't any bridge to take them. So it was called to build that bridge, and we have a heck of a difficulties. So I asked my angel what we should do, because we need build cantilever for Bailey Bridge to project about gap of road. And I just say, put track as cantilever. So we built small amount of bridge, drive the truck on it, push farther, take a truck off, build a little more. It took us all night to build that bridge. Finally, we did connect the bridge that wounded people can drive through it, but it was a hell with it to build the bridge. And that first time in my life when I sleepwalking, everybody was so tired that we put on the side of column people who couldn't sleep and walk, and we all took it hands, lock in, and walk sleeping with guide of on this both sides of people who couldn't sleep. So, a final push for Predapio, line Gotos line and all this stuff. Oh. Here again, I forgot about incident what happened in the Monte Cassino when our unit after British sent Indian division to conquer Monte Cassino. Anders asked if our Second Corps can help to conquer Monte Cassino. My understanding was that Churchill was against because he said, in Indian we have a replacement, but with you Poles, German kill Poles, we don't have any replacement to step in the vacuum of lost soldier. But I think Anders wants to show how our soldier is ready to fight. So we designed a back road from Campobass to Monte Cassino. And we was working day and night because heal us, protect us from observation. However, German can hear what we are doing, replacing a hill, and then a dynamite hills to make a road on back to that we can attack not from front like Texan army attack, but from back in it. And in one of these roads with the beard, we didn't have a privilege to make it radius of road what is easy to drive. In one of this loop was so tight that our tanks couldn't make it. Even with back 3 or 4 times, he couldn't make it, and finally backing up, left tread was hanging over 2,000 feet drop. So he couldn't go forward because it's nothing to hold friction of left tread. So my suggestion was to dump the truck and tag 2,000 feet. And my superior said, no, we must to check with British officer because the British assigned to Polish tank division British tanks. So we couldn't make that decision. So we wasted about 2 hours to bring the British officer who agreed with me to dump the tank to ravine. And meantime, German get aim and start shooting mortars, which hurt our crew quite a bit. But we did that road and we conquered Monte Cassino. Of course, it was in ruin by 5th American Air Force, who bombed her with it. And why they bombed? Because on the Monte Cassino they have a caves. And in the caves was mortars and machine guns, heavy machine guns. And when Air Force bombed, they go to the caves, what was about 300 feet deep in the rock. And when Air Force stopped bombing, they moved mortars and machine guns to opening caves, and there was killing the people. That's why we have so hard to conquer Monte Cassino. And Germans say, no, we are not in monastery. You bombed monastery. Yes, there was not in monastery, but there was under monastery. So that's why they bombed. And at that time, Polish infantry and 3rd Division was attacking under the bomb of American Air Force when German hide in the caves. And that's what they took it out. Now, in one assignment before Chiaravale, it was to chase the German out. We replaced Italian army, volunteer army, and a part of British army, which German have a lot of concrete bunkers and heavy machine guns. And when British artillery or any artillery starts shooting, they go to concrete bunkers. And when shooting stop, they go out, and that's what Italian and English usually attack. They put barrage of artillery stop, and infantry attack. And German, because it was about probably 2 miles depth of the front, and German have enough time to bring mortar and heavy machine guns out of shelter. But what we did with our unit, we attacked when our artillery was progressing. So we are start about half a mile from on front of our unit. And every 10, 15 minutes, they go about half a mile farther, half a mile farther. And Germans was very surprised when they met Polish soldier on top of their bunkers. And they was giving us a nickname, Devil Brigade, because they was fighting Italian, they was fighting British, and that's what they couldn't be conquered because they have enough time to move this heavy equipment and repel invasion, attack. But we progress with the artillery. We have a casualty, but we didn't have a deaths. We have wounded people because shrapnel don't know direction. Shrapnel go every direction. So we have quite a few wounded people, but we finally removed German from this type of. So in Caravana, going on north, German counterattack, and we repel counterattack, and German retreating below the bridge.
I get the order to have a reconnaissance on the river edge, which will be best for crossing of mechanical arms like tanks and courier and trucks. And when I reach the river bank, what was well set with bushes and forest, I noticed under the tree was a German soldier, put his gun supported by the tree, and was sitting down and reading the letter, or was reading some paper. I presume it was a letter. I was approximately about 600 yards from him, and through my field glasses I see very much he was crying, reading a letter and crying. Now, he was more or less the order of the war, that you find the German, you must to kill him because he will kill you if you don't kill him. That is law of the war, to kill or to be killed. But some in my deep faith say, don't do it. So I wait another 10, 15 minutes, and finally he turned this paper to the shreds and throw on the ground and take his gun and cross the river on the other side. Well, that to me indicate I took a very good aim with binoculars where he was crossing, that apparently that part of the river wasn't mine. And after I saw he reached the other side of the river, it was about 400 feet wide, that place, I went and picked up all papers, shreds, what he tossed on the ground. And I surprised that he was one of Slavic from Czechoslovakia, which I could read his letter, where it was explained by his wife that even he served in glorious German army. They don't have a food for the children, that they don't have a milk for newborn baby, and describe very big poverty what they experience in Czechs and in Germany. I just thought that letter brought much more information than that German soldier. So next day, actually at morning, early at morning, but it was still dark, we demined the area close where he was walking because it was more accessible to cross the river by mechanical unit. And we was waiting for our tank to cross by. So first unit of our tanks, we put the white line in the river to indicate where tank must go between these two white lines. So first unit of, I don't know, a dozen of tanks crossed the river, and they told me that there's another unit that came in 2-3 hours later, so I was waiting there for 2 hours later, and second unit was coming out. So I direct them to the place where it was demined, but they didn't want to cross. Apparently they wasn't needed there, but it was again about 1,000 or 2,000 of tanks waiting on our side of a river for order to cross the river. Meantime, I get the order to cross the river on the other side because they spotted some kind of single shots, and they was for sure that must be German. So investigate what's going on, because our tanks already first wave went through, and how come we'll still have a German on the side of the river. So scout cars come with a platoon of infantry, and I jumped to one, was three of us was sitting there, driver and one officer and me, and it was machine gun, heavy machine gun, 50 centimeters machine guns. And we was drive on other side of, and we select the left side where the more or less the single shots was heard. And we go on the field between the house and pastures and river, park our scout cars, and we get two groups which should go and investigate the edge of the river. Now, I went on left side, and another guy with five people go on right side. And I went through to this mined part of the river and come back, and I couldn't find anything in it. And this other guy come back, and he couldn't find anything in it. But I said, well, we probably better change. He go my left side, and I go his right side and investigate again. And I went with the scout car to the river to try to find a better crossing, another crossing, because one crossing we felt was a little narrow and make it very easy for German artillery to concentrate in that one spot. So we tried to find out another spot where our arms, mechanical arms, can cross by. And as soon as we go with scout car to river, I was in the river on the foot crossing, and a scout car was following me. And suddenly I received from German side, where we was there, heavy fire, machine guns and guns fire to our scout car, and of course me in the river. I was about probably 10 feet in front of the scout car, and I saw the bullets on the river just splashing over, so I just ran on the other side of scout car, and I say I'm going to go through our unit there and warn them that they must go and attack Germans and eliminate the unit, German unit. Meantime, from other side, or left side, the group took it to prison about 10 German soldiers off. But when I was crossing from my scout car to my unit, I didn't go the way as scout cars went. By Germans cut a bunch of the tree as anti-tank defense. So I just thought I probably better go over this trees to prevent stepping on mine, because I just thought that probably tree was pretty hard to mine it up. So I went slowly to this fallen tree to our unit, And our unit already started fighting German, and 3 of our boys was killed by Germans. And Germans was shooting at us, we was shooting at German, and our ricochet was hitting our tanks, what was on our side of the River Chanty. And they started shooting, and it was terrible fire. We was fired by Germans, and our tank was fired on us because they thought that that was Germans shooting to them. So here was 10 Germans prisoners. We, of course, took it all arms from them and unloaded ammunition, that this was only guns, was empty, laying there, but we just felt that, well, if any German who start moving toward the guns should be shot. And we give that warning to Germans. And I grabbed the telephone, and the guy said, "Oh, no, you must decode, put a message to coding." And I said, "I don't have a time to code the message." So I sent the message to my headquarters. They can send message to headquarters of tanks, stop shooting, and send us another dozen of scout cars, armed cars, to pick it up, German prisoners. And meantime, one German prisoner comes to me and he said, "You know, I could kill you." And I say, "Well, how?" I say, "I was with Foxhole under the tree when you was passing by." And he say, "Bayonet could kill you when you're passing by because you was very slow. I could kill you." And I thought, I say, he probably lied. He won't have a special privileges or what. So I went back to retrace my tree when I was passing. And sure enough, under the tree, with covered over branches, was Foxhole with the gun and bayonet still on the rifles. Now, I think this was probably another angel on my shoulder, which prevented me from to be killed, and find out that that soldier was the guy who wrote the letter, who read the letter, which I forwarded to headquarters. So some miracles happened during the war.